Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Jack, Conrad, 45, week 7 review. I am not doing well. 3 weeks at least, maybe 4 weeks of 1 and 2. I'm not sure. Gets me level 9 and 9. Jack, on the other hand, has been inverse. He's been 2 and 1 for the last 3 or 4 weeks, leaving him 11 and 7. I'm not happy about this.
Feeling consistently above
We've
average.
I'm just mediocre at best. We got United, Arsenal, Villa, Burnley, Wolves, Watford, plus some commentary on Pochettino and Xhaka, following up on what we led into the weekend with. This is a terrible match, this United-Arsenal. Everybody was like, hey, it's United-Arsenal, yeah, but then we forgot how terrible United and Arsenal have been.
Yeah.
Arsenal clinging to 4th place on 12 points, despite all the angst around them.
Yeah.
I expected a lot more goals. I don't know what I was thinking. We did say in the preview that United can't score and Arsenal can't defend. What's going to happen?
See, the thing that I thought going into it was that Arsenal didn't have the quality to overcome the home atmosphere, and I think it was just neither team had much quality, to say the least. I mean, we've seen Nicolas Pepe, their record signing, get outdone by an 18-year-old. I mean, he's barely a few days older than I am, and he's out there actually performing compared to their guy who they brought in. He was super hyped up coming in for his talent coming from Lille, but he really has kind of flopped there. And overall, both of these teams are not happy with their performance. And if you took away the badges and you didn't know who these two clubs were, you would be surprised to know that these are two of the most storied clubs in
Championship
history.
sides.
These are championship sides in the last couple of decades. They did not show that on the weekend, and it was really disappointing, to be honest.
I was saying they're championship sides, like EFL championship. That's who you'd think they are. It was billed as El Sacico, and what I think it really was is these two conspiring for a draw, so neither of them would have to take any heat.
Oh, yeah.
It was not live. It was terrible. United off to their worst start in 30 years. 9 points from 7 matches. It's just not good enough. And again, it's not Solskjaer's fault. He needs 2 or 3 windows.
Yeah, both of these teams, I think, need more patience. I think it's the constant theme for pretty much every top 6 side right now is you need more time to figure things out and get things right, and you're not going to get anywhere by rushing out your manager and rushing in a new one, because it's still the same group of players, same 11 guys who are going to run out onto the field, and at the end of the day, that talent isn't there, and that's what needs to be addressed, and the only thing that can help that is time to develop the players and time to add the players through transfer windows.
Well, and United I don't think they can fire another manager right now. Like they've got, I don't know, $50 million in dead money that they've spent on managers in the last 4 years after.
Moyes, Van Gaal, Mourinho, now you're on Solskjaer. I mean,
Mourinho was like a $37 million payout or something like that.
It was tough for him.
That was just ridiculous. Meanwhile, Arsenal have not won away against the top 6 side in the last 24 matches. 15 losses, 9 draws. That's not good. And again, I think they're in that transitional state. We talk a little bit about some of the bright spots here in a minute, but McTominay looked good. Matteo Guendouzi continues to look good. He's providing really the only leadership on the pitch there. You mentioned Pepe, $72 million. He looks terrible, but again, it's 7 matches in, right? It's going to take him time to adjust. It's the same thing that we talked about with Pulisic. It's the same thing that we talked about with Liverpool with Keita and Fabinho. We just got to be given time. But those shots were terrible. Like, they weren't even close.
Yeah, the thing was that it's not a case of lack of confidence. It's just the talent did not look like it was there. And that was the most disappointing thing to see. But I think, again, it's 7 matches in. The Premier League pace is significantly different than League One. And that's the only other top 5 league where you see a lack of consistency from players making that transition into the Premier League. Very few players make that successfully. I think Eden Hazard and N'Golo Kante are some of the guys that come to mind when we think of they came from Ligue 1 and then they immediately got embedded into the league. But I'm not concerned about Pepe's talent, but I am concerned that there is so much pressure on him immediately to succeed, because I think that might be adverse for his expectations of what he can do.
Yeah, I think you got to give him time. Give him a season, see how he beds in. I mean, Lacazette wasn't all that great his first year either.
Exactly. Yeah, he was not great, but he's proven to be very exciting.
So that VAR overturning, I mean, this is one of the worst calls that I've seen. I mean, if you look at this, he's right. The assistant referee is right in line with Harry Maguire, and he calls him offside.
Yeah, if you look,
he was 3 yards offside.
If you look at the back of that assistant
Onside,
referee's
excuse me.
bold spot, I mean, you'll see that he is pointed pretty directly at the ball, so he's not even paying attention to Maguire and the run being made by Aubameyang. But even in that case, you keep your flag down. I guess in his eyes it was so obvious that it should have been called offsides, but in that case, you keep the flag down so that way you don't see Young and De Gea pleading for offsides and they have that excuse where they weren't paying attention enough because the flag did go up, even though it was in fact very clearly onside.
McTominay's goal was a thing of beauty. There's another angle of this shot that shows all of the Arsenal defenders standing around. Socrates kind of ducking out of the way, and this is also where Xhaka, we talk about that in a second, takes a slight deflection, but I don't think he's to blame for this one. It was just a sheer brilliant shot from McTominay. He's a bright spot, for the lone bright spot offensively for United. And then Saka, we mentioned the 18-year-old outclassing Pepe thus far. He laid on the assist for the equalizer that was onside, clearly, to Aubameyang. Looks great. Absolutely looks great. Fast. United could not keep up with him at all.
Yeah. He looked good. I think that a big difference between him and Pepe is lack of expectations. And ultimately, I think Pepe is a much more developed player right now, but on the field, he didn't look like that. And that's just simply because there is so much external pressure on him, and we see that for the Premier League. A lot of these guys, where we see the heightened transfer fees, and you question the mentality, because that's how every transfer ultimately boils down to, is the level of talent is very close at the top level, and the thing that separates it is mentality and the ability to work through adverse situations and work through areas of difficulty. And it's one of the most difficult periods in Pepe's career, and we're going to see how he deals with it, because right now he hasn't dealt with it too well, but again, it's way too early to call him a flop. You invested £72 million in him. You're giving him several years to get it right, and I think he's going to get it very right.
I mean, you have the combination on Pepe, the weight of the fee, the weight of the shirt, and the expectations there versus Bukayo Saka, who has, this is the 18-year-old kid. He wants to go and prove himself. He's going to go out there and just take his chance. He's like, I don't know when I'm going to get another shot on this side, so I'm going to go do everything that I can and show my skill, because he doesn't have any of those expectations. He just has the inexperience that he's just got to look to his teammates to support him. Terrible football match. Villa, Burnley.
Better game.
Yeah, a lot of scoring. I think a lot of lack of discipline from Villa that led to this draw. We both, if we just take the twos, we got it right. But neither one of us got this one right, as it turns out. I think Sean Dyche's comments here just perfectly talk about what happened here. Villa open, expansive. Burnley quick on the counter. The second goal that Villa scored, John McGinn, beautiful, fantastic finish. He's unbelievable for Villa right now. But then they got excited. Hey, we're going to get to full three. They forgot to defend, forgot to get organized. And what happened? Burnley does what Burnley does, and Chris Wood came in and scored the equalizer late.
Yeah, that was the issue there. Is I viewed it as, the reason I picked Burnley win is because they have a consistent goal scorer in Chris Wood, and they have good defensive play, but they only got really half of that. They got their consistent goal scorer to get on the score sheet. But again, it's going to be tough to deal with an openly and expansive side away from home. I think both sides won't feel too awful about the result. They are, I don't want to say similar competition because their places in the table are significantly different, but in terms of investment in the squads, they are very similar. I think that this was, at the end of the day, a very fair result. 2-2 probably reflected the quality that was shown on that pitch.
Once again, Villa lose a goal to VAR. One of these days, stuff's going to turn around and go right for them. It can't continue this way. It'll even out, as we always say. But as I said, John McGinn, that pass from Trezeguet and the volley was absolutely stunning. 90 seconds later, they're picking the ball up out of their own net. Chris Wood, again, it's just in the Premier League, you cannot go to sleep for 1 second, especially against somebody that's as well drilled like a Sean Dyche side is on that counter, and you just can't do it. And they fell victim to it, lost the 3 as a result.
Exactly.
The battle in the basement, Wolves and Atford, neither team with a W. Terrible dad joke, but the W does go to Wolves. Not as much scoring as we anticipated.
Turns
Both
out
got
that
the
Wolves are slightly
results
less
right.
potent offensively than Man City are. just not able to put 8 past them.
just a little bit. Yeah, couldn't get the 8.
Yeah.
They actually only scored 1 because they had the Janmat own goal following a Matt Doherty strike. But Wolves, back to Wolves football, where they control 40% of the ball, but all of the scoring.
Yeah.
And Watford are just not very good. This was one of my favorite tweets. Toby Woody, Spanish and Portuguese Brillo pad beard love. Brothers from another mother, men in their beards. We talked about our love for Nuno and his beard. But again, not much outside of that.
Control
Wolves dominant with exactly.
Yeah.
Just go get the points. We said if you can't get points at home against Watford at this stage of the season against a team that really does not know what they're doing, you have a problem.
Yeah. We'll take a look at the table in just a second. I mean, very bottom of it is Watford with 4 goals scored and 20 conceded. It's tough. It's the best way to describe it.
You're not going to do well. So here's the table. Let's put this on big screen. LFC scrappy win. They got a big meetup this weekend with Leicester. A lot of storylines, notably Brendan Rodgers returning to Anfield for the first time since he left. Arsenal, despite all that angst, find themselves 4th place, just ahead of West Ham on goals scored because they're level on difference. And then you got 4 teams with 11 points. Spurs in the first among them on goal difference, rounding out the top 6.
The big thing to take away from the table right now is that everyone is so compact. I mean, you go all the way down to 12th.
Congested.
12th up to 4th are separated by 4 points. It's such a close area where one team hits a bit of form, they're going to be doing well. One team hits a bad run of form, they're going to be doing poorly. That's why it's way too early to call for any heads for managers, and it's way too early to question the tactics, I think, for a lot of these teams because
except for Javi Gracia.
Except for Javi Gracia, yeah, that's very deserved. But everywhere else you can say, well, we're in and about because it's such a competitive year this year that Chelsea, you can argue Arsenal, United for sure, maybe even Spurs are kind of in disarray, and they're usually teams that you say those are locks for wins against teams that aren't in the top 6. But it's going to be interesting to see how they all deal with that.
Leicester is going to give Liverpool all they can handle this weekend. That's the top match coming up in week 8. But Chelsea back in the top half. United sitting 10th. Bottom half of the table, Wolves bounce from what they were 18th, 17th, all the way up to 13th just by picking up 3 points. And again, it's your point. There's that congestion. Another big matchup this weekend. Villa travels to Carrow Road to take on the Canaries. They can get themselves out of the basement with taking 3 points there against a Norwich side that's heavily injured. And you talk about Norwich's record coming in, 2-0-5.
Hit or miss.
That's Norwich.
That's Norwich.
All or nothing. But going back up here, Man City's goal differential is plus 20. That's more than any other team has goals scored, and that is their differential. Granted, 8 of that came from Atford, but that's insane.
Yeah, I mean, if you take
and they're not going to concede many. I don't think that's gonna be how they win the title if they do so. If they can come back and equalize on points with Liverpool, they're going to win. Somebody on goal difference.
They're missing Laporte and Stones. They're missing Laporte until January, February, March time, and Stones for another month. This is when they are most volatile, and Laporte is their best defender, hands down in my opinion. And they're doing well because they have Rodri, who's done phenomenally since he's came to the club to be a good defensive shield for them in the midfield. And overall, they've done a good job dealing with that loss. But it's going to be interesting to see how they handle it when they get into a bit more fixture congestion. And against some of the more top sides, how they handle losing one of their most important players and one of the more underrated players on that team.
Were you playing Fernandinho as a center back? I mean, he's 34, 35. You're one injury away from having nobody at center back. A couple other things. Spursy. So Spursy. God, they got smoked. They looked terrible. The first 40, 45 minutes, not bad.
Oh, yeah.
But those last 30 minutes,
they kind of just gave
Lord.
up. And the biggest thing that you look at in that game is you're at home and you just gave up and you just kind of caved in. And Serge Gnabry had, I mean, L'Équipe, they have only given 10 out of 10 performances in their match ratings, and he was one of them in the last 30 years because he was just so good. But that doesn't excuse a Spurs side that just absolutely failed to show up. And it was
Well, both managers had the same comment afterward. It's everything that Bayern put on net went in. Like, their hit rate was outrageous. And Spurs couldn't put it in the ocean. Like, they just could not do
You couldn't
anything.
blame Lloris
They're coming
so
off
much
of
of
two. No.
because it was just positionally his
getting
defense was
peppered.
gone.
Yeah, no. There's nothing that he was getting zero help. I mean, they had a 2-1 win over Southampton. They went down to 10 men. Aurier was sent off with 2 yellows. He will miss the Brighton match. Players are rumored to be questioning the tactics. They don't like the diamond because it's too narrow. They don't like the 4-4-2 because there's not enough in midfield to control. Lucas Moura's pissed off about being left out of the side. You've got the head coach making comments after the 2-1 loss to Leicester. It's just one game. I'm not worried about it. After this, he's like, guys, we gotta stick together. We cannot splinter. Aurier doesn't look like he wants to be there. We know Eriksen's challenge. Pochettino is owed $32 million, so he's probably not going to get sacked. If he's going to walk, it's going to be on his own. 2 empty windows. Ndombele, Lo Celso, Sessegnon coming in. Only Ndombele making a reasonable contribution. They're stale, and they've been finishing well off the top these last 2 years. It's just not been good. I don't know what they can do
Exactly.
other than recycle players in the January window. They're going to make some big changes.
Yeah.
9, 5, and 14 over the last 28. No, not good. Finish out talking about Xhaka again. He got torched.
For ducking.
Torched. And I don't blame him. I see a ball coming at me 90 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour. I'm not sure I'm going to stick my head in front of it. He did glance it. He was probably trying to get the crown of his head on it. This is a classic case where you jump and turn, so it hits you in the back. But he took a lot of abuse. He's just not leading on that pitch. I think, you got Holding is probably going to be a better captain at some point. Guendouzi, he's filling that void, vocally on the pitch.
Yeah, the thing is, with Xhaka, I have no doubt that he's a great leader in the locker room. I have no doubt that he is liked by his teammates and liked by the coach and does a good job bringing out the tactics and is the coach on the field. But the issue is he does not have the captain talent on the field or the captain love that you kind of need for a club to succeed. And that's going to be...
You have to be respected by the supporters.
Exactly, yeah. And he's not right now.
And he's not.
And that's the issue. And I don't think there's no chance of him improving things, but it's dismal to say the least right now.
And he picked up a yellow card in the most unsurprising thing. Coming in, everybody's like, hey, his disciplinary record's much better. He hasn't picked up any cards. There we go. That'll do it. Footy5 on Twitter, @Footy5, Jack, Conrad. Appreciate it. Give us a like, subscribe. Take care now.
That's pretty good, actually. That's pretty good.